Hi, I'm Rick Lobdell. Welcome to another episode of Concrete Mystique, the podcast. I want to thank Surfco for sponsoring the show. Go to surfco.com and check out all their great products. Today on the show, we have my best friend, Ryan Samford. Welcome to another episode of Concrete Mystique, the podcast. Today is going to be an unusual one. I really have no idea where this one's going to go, but I have in the studio pretty much one of my best friends in the industry all around, Mr. Ryan Samford.
Thanks for letting me come over and chill.
Absolutely.
We're not talking.
I don't know about chilling.
I don't know. I mean,
There's no such thing as chilling when it comes to the two of us.
No, usually we got a story somewhere involved with this.
Arm wrestling.
Oh, God.
The list goes on and on and on.
Yeah. Squirrel. No, thunder. Thunder was a good one. Yeah. Yeah. So many stories we can't talk about to protect the guilty.
All right. So what I like to ask when I first start these shows is, and this is the best question probably of all time for any of these, is when did we first meet?
Beyond the Edge, which is a bar in Nashville, probably in probably 2000.
No.
Was it 22?
No. 22. You went from 2000 to 22?
Well, yeah, just 2002.
No.
When? I know it was Beyond the Edge. I remember the bar.
2007.
Okay. That's right when you had just purchased Concrete Mystique.
I was actually still in the process of purchasing it. I don't even know if I'd actually purchased it yet or was about to.
Yeah, but your boss had told you, don't even talk to that guy. He's a waste of
That
your
wasn't
time.
even my boss. That was my sales rep.
Yeah, that's funny.
Stuart. Good old Stuart. Shout
Little
out to
did he
Stuart
know.
in case he ever watches one of these.
Yeah. Good job, buddy. You screwed that one up.
Okay, so a lot of times I ask that question because I don't remember. I mean, you'd be surprised how many people I talk to, and I don't remember that I met them years before, and you've seen me. You've been a part of all of this.
Yeah.
You have been right beside me half the time in all of these conversations where you're like, you don't remember talking to this guy? And I'm like, no.
No, why should I?
So it's kind of funny that way to bring this up of all times and of all people. But to clarify the details to that question on this one, because there is a story, it's not just as simple as we met at Beyond the Edge, like a random bar. There's a reason to why we met there and how it all started. Now, you want to tell that story? You want me to?
Well, you thought I was there to sell you materials.
Well, you were.
Well, yeah, I think everyone's going to sell something. At the time, I was trying to sell some other brands, and I had seen your work, and I had realized that you were not going to buy from me. You had your set system. You were done. And so I remember coming to you and saying, hey, how about you do your jam, and I'm going to make it stay and make it look better. And so, because of epoxies. And
this is a very PC version of the story.
I don't know where this is going, so I'm trying to PC a little bit.
There is no PC to the show. It doesn't matter where it goes.
People
want to know.
This was 20 years ago.
People want to know the truth.
You can't
and the
handle
truth
the
flat
truth.
out is that you can't handle the truth.
You can't handle the truth.
But the truth is that he randomly calls my office, and Stuart goes, oh, yeah, this is your problem now. Good luck with him. He just wants to sell you something. And I'm like, well, I don't need anything. So he calls me up, and I said, dude, I don't need anything from you at all. Stop calling me. I mean, I'm basically very rude to him. Flat out, 100%.
See, I forgot all
in
that.
front of a camera, recorded. I am extremely rude to him and say, screw you, I don't need you, why are you bothering me, don't call me again. Basically, in a roundabout way. That's paraphrased.
I overlooked that. I forgot all about that.
How can you forget about that? This is the best part of the story.
Because we've grown so much as friends, I don't think about the negative. That's one thing about me. I mean,
so he goes, well, okay, but you don't even know what I have. And I'm like, I don't care. I like what I have. I don't need anything else. I'm happy with where I'm at. And he was like, well, why don't you just meet with me? And I'm like, I don't know why. I mean, he talks me into meeting with them. And I'm like, all right, fine, screw it. But we're meeting on my terms. We're meeting at my bar.
In East
which
Nashville.
Is where I took every one of my every one of my employees for an interview. I interviewed them at this same bar. Anytime I had a meeting with my business consultant, it was at this bar. And there was reasons for doing this. It wasn't just because it was my favorite bar, which I have,
and because they had fat tire.
I knew I was going to go.
In a can.
Just thought about that. That wasn't the reason back then, but that is such a
plug
funny
for
story.
Fat Tire, New Belgium. Copyright Ricky Bobby.
But on top of that too, I was just like, I don't care. So we're going to do this my way. And like for example, one of the reasons why I meet people at the bar all the time, especially if you're like a new possible employee to interview, I want to see how much you're going to drink. I want to see if you're going to drink at all. I want to see how you're going to handle yourself, how personable you're going to be around the people around you. You're going to be rude to the person. Yeah,
waitress.
Every little detail. Like it's a test. It's not just we're meeting in a bar. It's a test from my point of view, but they don't know that. So I do this to Ryan, and it goes better than I expected.
You must have passed the test.
Yeah, we got along fairly well, and he talked me into trying something different, and it wasn't trying something different as in the material at that moment.
Right.
It was more talking to each other about possibilities of doing projects in together, not really together, but like to not be so. I was so negative about anybody in the industry competing against me. It was F you to everybody in Nashville if you were in decorative concrete. And he knows everything about this because he's seen how angry I get at other competitors and stuff like that. If one of my employees leaves, he's dead to me. Like, I don't care. I am ruthless. Ruthless.
And he has told me you're dead to me more than once. I remember a very long plane ride back from Vegas one year. I remember that very well. That was a very long trip. And we've had some long trips back from Vegas where we were just up too long.
Yeah, no, this was totally me yelling the entire time in his ear.
Yeah, I was really glad.
For 5 straight hours.
Yeah, I really wish we had assigned seatings and I didn't have to sit next to you, but that's just the way it worked out that time. Yeah, it was long.
I loved it. I had a great time.
Yeah, I'm so glad.
I enjoyed the crap out of it.
I know.
Yelling at you nonstop.
I mean, you got to slap somebody in the face on that trip.
Right before that plane ride.
Right before the plane ride.
I mean, we went straight from there to the plane ride.
You got a piece of napkin that you held on to, probably still have framed somewhere in this room.
It's still in my backpack.
Yep. Memories. Yes. Anyone who's listening to the story, who knows the story, you can put it all together. I don't feel like slamming the other company.
No, we're not going to go there, no, not too many people know that story at all. Yep. Someday I will tell you in person if you want to know.
Yep.
But we will just put it as
the person deserved it.
Not just that, but there are ways to make sure what you do in this industry, personally, and in the like your presentation to the industry, not just networking, but your perception. That's the word.
Yeah.
The way you are perceived in this industry is extremely important, and Ryan and I talked about that all the time back then.
Yeah.
And in fact, to the same point, Ryan chose to kind of go off on his own way after a long period of us working together because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he felt like he was just riding my coattails instead of doing it with me. And that's a whole nother part. And that's one thing I do want to talk about today because that is extremely important to know. I learned a lot back then, and we've talked about this so much personally, but it took a long time for me to loosen up because I'm so controlling, 100% controlling about everything I do. And from my point of view, if it's my design, my project, and we're doing it my way, then it's mine. It's not ours. It's mine. Mine. I'm a Minosaur. And we did so many projects together that were huge, and we won national awards together. Yep. But I kept saying it was mine. And he kept trying to go, it's not yours, it's ours. And I was like, how is it ours?
In some cases, it was the team.
And it was. And I had to get over that, and I had to learn that, and I had to accept that. And it took a lot of patience from this man over here to allow that to happen, because anybody else would have just been like, screw you, and just gave up. But Ryan never, ever gave up on me. Not once. Well, even at the amount of times I yelled at him, he still did not give up.
I usually just wait for you to call back eventually. I had some really good wisdom. My dad was in the concrete industry. He was a sculptor. He actually used to be at Vanderbilt Peabody. He taught. He's got his, master's, basically, or doctorate in art. I mean, it's as high as it can get. And he did that out of spite for his other teachers when they said he couldn't do it. So I grew up around artists. My mom does some interior design. My sister's a hairstylist and does photography and painting. I've been around color and colorful people my entire life. And I remember asking my dad, and I said, what is wrong with this guy? I was like, everything is his way. He's the most arrogant person I've ever met. And half the time he's condescending, but he doesn't even know it.
Still am.
Yeah, I know. You know it though. But I said, I want to be his friend. I like our relationship, but how do I handle that? And he gave me some really good wisdom. He said, he's an artist. And he paused. I went, yeah, he's definitely told me that a lot. He said, artists have to believe in themselves more than anyone else does because they're the only reason that they continue to do what they do. So basically, you had to have an inflated ego in order to be who you are now and at the time. And so by me knowing the fact that it was your training, it became you for a period of time. I'd say you're much more gentle with your presentations and your critiques now. I mean, they're actually asking you to be on a judge. God forbid, 20 years ago,
100%.
you being a judge, you'd been like, you guys all suck.
Would have been great.
Yeah, and
TV,
let me show you how to do this because you're doing this all wrong. Why are you measuring it that way? You're a moron. Do you not know simple math and geometry and algebra? You've gotten a lot better. Now
I think that was word for word on a project from me.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Because
I
he was
remember
saying
the project.
Yeah. He said it to me more than once. He's like, why can't you figure out how to draw a diamond? I'm like, it's a square sideways. Yeah, but how do you figure out oh my God, it was a long day.
Yeah. 6 feet, buddy. 6 feet. Wasn't complicated.
No, it is when I'm thinking it's a 4-foot square. Why is it 6 foot? That's baloney. But, finally he came around and showed me, and I'm like, oh, that was not my strong suit. My strong suit was patience.
You definitely had that.
Yeah. But that's how I had the temperament to work with you. And
Interesting, because he's never told me this before.
yeah, well, I've told other people. And I've also is the fact that I don't hold on to, like you were like, how do you not remember that? I don't hold on to negatives because it doesn't make me feel better as a person. Like if I thought of all the people that have wronged me in little bits, I'd be a sour apple.
I think I keep track of half the people that wrong you.
Yeah, you do a pretty
and
good
yell
job.
at you about that.
Yeah, you're like, don't you remember this? I'm like, no. Unless you really piss me off, I don't really care. There is a handful of people, and you know most of those people, that I would not lift a finger for. And there are some people that I really dislike, but if they needed something, I would at least consider it. Even though I don't like them. I don't like their business practices.
Yeah, right.
But them as a person, maybe.
Right.
But there's some people that are just lying, cheating, son of a bitches. And just what it is. And I figure, you know what? Whether it's karma, golden rule, God, however, what religion, nationality, whatever, it's going to come back to bite you. You do wrong, it's going to come back wrong.
Well, that's an interesting way to say it, too, because, one of the things, to your point, too, is that I was never doing it in a malicious, bad way.
No.
And that is a key to it all, too, to why you probably put up with a lot of it in the first place. But I was even doing a podcast with Isaiah Pride, and I was talking about, you don't know what I used to be like. You really don't get how much I've changed. And in all reality, there's a few people in this industry that think that they're the reason why I changed, and none of them have any idea of how deep this story goes to you being that person, without a shadow of a doubt. That person to get me to understand that I needed to change. And at the exact same time, we were knee deep in this industry, doing artistries at Vegas, winning national awards left and right.
Decor shows.
We won, the two of us, not me, saying it properly, the two of us won 6 awards in 1 year together. There is no other company, single company, individual company that has won that many in 1 year of the DCC awards. There are companies that have 50 locations
right,
that have won more awards than 1 year, but they're all different locations, but not one company individually, the 2 men in a truck kind of idea that we were at that time. No, nobody has won as many awards as we have in 1 year for the DCC awards.
Cool. I did not know that.
And we took advantage of it. I mean, there's a picture of me holding them.
Yeah, that was fun. I still got that picture somewhere. Me and my big old fat
But
self.
it was around that time that we finally hit that wall of you having to get me to understand this isn't just about me. It's about everybody around me. It's about the team. It's about everyone.
Which
and
is
that
when you
this
can't-
award is for everybody.
And that's about the time when we did the concrete decor here in Nashville. God, I don't.
No, that was actually after. That was the beginning of it all. That was the beginning of you digging into me about it. Yes.
Well, I dug in, but that was the first time. Remember that shot where my dad was in there, Joe Drake?
Yeah, the band thing.
The band.
Yeah.
And you'd made the comment, you're like, this is the band. And we actually have a picture of all of us holding up instruments that nobody knows how to play.
Except for one, the drummer.
Yeah, well, yeah. Does he do it well?
Yes, he's a professional
Yeah,
drummer.
that guy. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
he's incredible.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
One person. The rest of us, I had a saxophone. I have no freaking clue how to play saxophone.
Your dad had a tuba.
Yeah, I know. That's pretty great. I can play a juice harp. That's about it. So I remember you saying, we're a band. You said, I'm the lead guitarist, but you're the drummer. Because you always make sure that the things happen.
I'm the lead singer.
You're the lead singer.
Yes.
I'm the drummer.
Yeah.
Even though I wasn't holding the drumsticks. But it's
a
one.
metaphor.
I know. I got the metaphor. I mean,
Just clarifying for everybody
Oh,
else.
okay, yeah.
Talking about a metaphor.
that's true. We're not just talking. But I mean, I remember it was one of those like, okay, Rick's starting to get the picture. There's more people that make a team than I, right? And in your mind, it was always like, well, I can do this better. And you finally started coming around to that.
I think doing the dinner theater in general helped a lot with that between the two of us because the amount of hours we were doing that together.
Well, let's go back to the first time we worked on a project from hell.
Yeah, I have that in here as questions.
Okay, so should we get back to that?
No, you're fine. We can jump. Okay.
Okay.
So let's tell a quick story. This is a good one.
Okay.
Okay. So back to the very beginning conversation of, I don't need you. I don't want your materials. I don't know why you're bothering me. I don't know why you want to meet. Okay, sure, we were going to meet. Shortly after this, it's 6-8 months later, the economy starts to tank.
Yeah.
You know, by the end of that year, that was my most profitable year, really still to date. And I was on top of the world. I did not need anything. I was planning to make a franchise of just how to acid stain and solvent-based seal because I knew nothing else.
Yeah.
And I thought that I was on top of the world and I thought I knew everything. And I was the smartest person in this industry at that moment.
He is not lying when he says that confidently.
No, not lying at all. This is all
This
true
is
story.
not an exaggeration of the fact.
So I get this project in Baxter, Tennessee to do this winery. And at first we get it, but then the economy tanks and we don't get it. So then it's like another year later that they finally say, okay, we can do this. And by that point, Ryan and I had started to do a couple projects together because when everything slowed down, it was really hard to keep employees. Mm-hmm. Now I'd had 2 employees at the time or something like that, maybe 3. And I had another buddy, Rome, that also needed money and was like, really like, if you can help me out with anything. And I was like, well, I got this project where I need help anyway. Well, Ryan decided to go ahead and join me too and do it together. Well, in the beginning of this conversation, it is acid stain and solvent-based seal. It is nothing else because I don't know any better. I don't know that there's a whole world of epoxies and urethanes. And back to the beginning of the conversation, why would I need Ryan? Because I know everything.
Yeah.
So we go to this project, we do it, everything goes great. We're getting toward the end of it.
No, you forgot the part. So we get there and all of the concrete, it was delaminating.
A little bit of it, yeah.
A little bit. You could drag a
Just in
chain
one room.
over it. But you could grab that chain over and you could hear it starting to mess with it. So Rick's like, oh crap, we got to overlay this thing. It's a whole nother process.
I wasn't even overlaying yet.
No, you weren't. But,
I didn't even know
But
about
you didn't know
overlay.
what to do.
Right.
But you're like, this is failing. I don't know how to fix it. And I said, what if we do this? And it was in my world, the epoxy world. And I'm like, let's do this. I think that'll lock it in. He's like, you think so? I'm like, yeah, if we cut it enough. And it was a polyamide epoxy. I mean, it sticks
Smelled
to
like
everything.
hell on
Oh,
earth.
God, it's horrid. But it will soak in and stick to just about anything. But I don't even know if it's legal anymore. I mean, it's one of those kind of deals.
It's a very good question.
And the way we were using it was definitely not legal. So,
What, you mean because we were changing the VOCs?
yeah, no OSHA violations here. I can't tell you the location of the project or any of that information.
I already did.
No, you didn't tell him the name.
That's true.
Okay.
Not yet.
So I say, I think we can do this. And so he's like, all right, fine. We'll try it your way. So,
No, hold on.
Oh, there's more.
The reason why I was saying it the way I did is we had to talk them into doing it because we
That's
charged
true.
more for it.
Yeah, we did.
So that was the complication. We're in a slow economy. they need us to change our tactics, and I have no idea what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right? And so you have to present this to them and say, hey, and it was only a couple extra dollars a square foot more. And it took a little bit, but it was 6,500 square feet. It wasn't small.
It wasn't
So
100.
$2 more a square foot is boom, it was huge to them. And also, we all know, everybody that's listening always knows that when you get to the end of a project, nobody has any money to spend on you. That's the
Right.
biggest problem every single time. Do this while I kept doing the job.
I don't even remember. I remember being on our hands and knees painting acid for hours and hours. And I
Listening
remember
to great music.
No, let me clarify this, because even leading up to this exact meeting, we still laugh about this. He put on, because we were working on the project, everyone kind of got to pick some time. Rick and I were the bosses, so we got the most time allotted. And so Rick picks the music choice of the day was Russian polka. If anybody wants to check it out,
It's Romanian gypsy punk.
it still sucked. It was the
was
longest.
awesome.
It was like the longest couple hours.
Go Bordello. Check it out.
Check it out.
Great.
It's great. So he knew that I was not enjoying myself. So when it was my turn, I subtly decided that I knew the band that he hated the most. And so I requested every album they had. And we listened to Nickelback for hours.
God.
And it didn't matter if I liked it or not. That was my revenge.
It sucked.
Yeah. But it was great. So anyway, so we do this project. I had to go and get material.
Again, very boring relationship, if you can tell.
Yeah, we don't, nothing. So I go and get the material. You have now picked out the leaves and everything that we're going to design on this floor, start staining it. We had to stain it twice? Did we stain it twice, or we
I don't
stained it
think we
once?
did.
You had to cut it twice.
Yes.
And then we start putting down the coating. Well, we have...
And we're talking about freehand angle grinding 6,500 square feet of bamboo and
Curly
like 4 to
cues.
6 foot size
You
leaves.
should totally put a picture
I
in
will.
this. Yeah.
But it was pretty epic design on top of that. But you're not talking about like standing up doing an engraver. You're talking about bent over, and there was only 2 of us in the team that could engrave.
Not me.
Martin and I.
Yeah. Martin.
And Rome, the extra,
And?
entertainer that needs to be part of this story, we need to do a podcast with the 3 of us just for this project alone.
I don't know if there's enough filters for Rome.
That's true. I do have another mic though. But he taught me to attach my angle grinder to my hip. And the funny
cord,
thing is
the cord.
we're talking about someone who does general construction, has never been on a concrete job ever. And we're in the middle of the job and he just stops me and he's like, "Hold on a second." It just goes and wraps it up on my hip, on my belt line, and I'm like, "What?" I was like, "Okay, whatever." And I started engraving, and I have done it every single project since then.
Change your life.
Changed everything.
So, yeah. And then, so when we got back to the coating, we ended up getting a Power Wagner sprayer from Costco or Home Depot, something
like that.
Yeah, it was one of those like,
$100.
yeah. I mean, it had a gallon tank, and I remember the size of it for a very specific reason.
Wait, hold on. At this point,
Oh.
we have sent everybody else home.
Yeah, it's like 8:00 at night.
The entire team is left, and we have one more day, just the 2 of us, to do this. We did it overnight, and the next day,
Yeah.
and nobody else is there. We sent everybody home, and it's just the 2 of us doing 6,500 square feet together on top of that. I forgot about that till just now.
Yeah, I did too. I remember it was just us that night because we start putting the coating through this machine. So we've got to spray it because we didn't want any roller marks. We were thinning it down quite a bit, and it was faster spraying it with a big sprayer. It was a fog in the room.
Oh, big time
Definitely,
fog.
definitely fog.
Big time.
I'm 90% sure we had respirators, but I don't know how much.
No, I did. Yeah.
Yeah, but
we
I
had
know
to. We would have died.
our hair, our beards, anything
The
that
windows,
everything
doors,
was coated.
coated.
It was like a fog machine inside this building with epoxy in the air. Like I said, OSHA would not have approved. But we were there in the middle of nowhere at 8:00 at night. The timing is important because we realize how much we have to cut it. We need more xylene. So Rick goes out and hits up every Home Depot, Lowe's, hardware store, buying as much xylene as he can. He probably looked like a meth head trying to get a fix. I mean,
Except for it wasn't acetone.
that's true.
That
But
takes
I mean,
acetone.
okay, sorry.
That happened to
That's
me
true.
before. No, the reason why you said that, I say that is, I remember the first time I bought like 10 gallons of acetone for a project, and the lady at the place was like, are you making meth? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she was like, usually
Oh,
people,
yeah.
so I had to actually, I went
We
through
bought a
that.
drum of it once. We had to have a background check. I forgot about that. But yeah. So anyway, he's running all over town trying to find it. I'm trying to keep the ball rolling because we're losing time. He gets back. We're using it, and all of a sudden the machine stops working. It got clogged. And I look at Rick, and Rick looks at me, and I said, "It's clogged." He goes, "It is clogged." I said, "Huh." All right. And so we know that we basically have to reach in there and pull the plunger out. And so Rick's like, "Do you have any gloves?" I'm like, "No," because I mean it's up to our forearms. I mean, it's up to our elbows. So I reach in and I get it out and
Well,
wipe my arm
let's
off.
clarify. We both stared at each other. I asked for a glove, and before I could even really think about it, he just goes, I mean, just without hesitation, just sticks his arm in there.
Yeah, I didn't wear my watch.
And I can remember him saying, "God damn, this itches."
Yeah, anybody who's had
Maybe not
xylene
those
on their
words.
anybody who's had xylene on any part of their body for an extended period of time knows how fun that is. So imagine sticking your whole arm into it, and now it's not just evaporated; it's stuck to you.
Man, when I was
It's awesome.
when I first started with Concrete Mystique before I owned it, they would torture you for the first day, and they would take a rag and put a little bit of xylene on it and say, "Stick this in your back pocket," and wait for you to start itching and feeling this burn, and then laugh hysterically at you because you didn't know any better.
Oh yeah, yeah, it was bad. But we finished the project, and afterwards he looked at me. He goes, "I've never met anybody who would just do that." I'm like, "Well, the project needed to be done, so I was tired of waiting. I didn't have to wait very long, but I was like, that's when he kind of was like, okay, we can work together."
Yeah.
Because it didn't matter if it was inconvenient, if it didn't feel good, we were going to finish the project, and we did finish that project on time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
everything went great.
It was a fun little project.
And it really went great. Like, it held up fantastic because, the other part to these kind of stories is I'm so crazy artist, particular, whatever you want to call it, that I'm frightened when I get a call from my clients.
Mm-hmm.
So after I finish, and it's no different than a painting. Let me clarify. When I sell you a painting, I never see it again. It's not like I call you randomly and check in on my painting every once in a while. It's gone to me. I move on. I have pictures of it, like I have my memories of it, but it's sold and it's somebody else's property now, and until I need it for a retrospective someday. And so it's kind of the same thing. Once I leave a project, I don't ever want to go back. I don't want to know negative. I just don't want to know negative. I always want to know positive, but I don't ever want to know negative. So I was scared to death to ever go back there again because that was so crazy. They yelled at us. They were mad at us. They they thought we were literally going to put 20 mils of epoxy down
Yeah, that
for
was
$2 a square foot, not
Yeah.
what we did. They didn't understand. They were clueless.
They didn't think it was going to hold up.
They didn't think it was going to hold up.
They called us liars.
And this man was right about everything because it did
We got lucky.
for years.
Yeah.
Because it was almost a decade later when you went back, 6 or 7 years later.
It still looked good. And a little worn, but hello, it happens.
But then we started talking to him about waxing it.
yeah.
And it was only one room that they had issues where it was spalting all the time. That back room was still an issue, but that wasn't our problem. And their office where their wheels would turn.
Yeah.
Other than that, the place was spotless.
Well, wheels are not good for anything.
And they wouldn't pay us to come back and do what we needed to fix it because they didn't want to spend
More money.
what it was supposed to take.
Right.
But it
So-
was an epic project.
Oh, but that's where we learned a lot about each other on that project. And then we learned a lot about each other on the dinner theater project.
In fact, I believe we won a national award for that one also.
Did we? Okay.
I think Delmont, I'm not allowed to tell. I think that winery did get it.
Okay. Yeah. No,
I'm pretty sure I can look downstairs in my stack of trophies, but
Your wall of fame.
it's not a wall. They're trophies.
My I Love Me wall.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did that. And then we did the dinner theater in Nashville, and that was a fun project.
Well, between those two, here's the interesting thing. We're talking about the difference between 2008 and 2010. Okay, so in that 2-year period, the economy is crap.
Yeah.
It's the worst economy in the history since the Great Depression. And at that point, we start doing projects together. And I had a couple employees doing stuff as much as I could keep them employed. I did the best I could to keep them employed. But in that time period, not only do you show me what epoxies and urethanes can do, first and foremost. But then we start messing with epoxies on multiple levels. We start going to training classes all over the country together, and sometimes acted like I was the boss and you were the employee, and other times you were the boss and I was the employee, to go so that we only had to pay for one person.
Well, we like tricking the system.
I mean,
That's kind of how we did World of Concrete. We were probably one of the few people that did artistry.
One time we got stranded in Milwaukee, was it? Was that Milwaukee?
That was awesome.
Was that where it was?
Yes.
We got stranded in Milwaukee because we didn't understand that everybody leaves as soon as the class is over.
Yeah.
We thought we were supposed to stay for an extra day, thinking everybody was going to hang out. And
So we're like, oh crap, what do we do?
and they paid for everything, the trip, the hotel. They paid for every detail except for that moment.
Yeah. But it was all right. You learned all about IKEA and Buffalo Wild Wings happy hour.
And we will tell that story.
That's another
day.
story for another day.
But where I was going was, we did so many projects, just the two of us, and where we would go in and you would sell a project and I would come in and help you for free. And then I would sell a project and you would come help me for free. And we stayed pretty even through those 2 years, through the worst economy possible.
Yeah, I don't think we ever traded money.
We never did.
No, and it was fun because we would talk to each other about a project. Like, hey, I went and looked at this project. Have you looked at it yet? And most of the time we would talk about the projects prior, and we would bid similar. Okay. There was one I remember that you said, yeah, I'll come and help you. And you showed up and you're like, I already bid this project. I forgot to tell you.
And told her not to do it.
Yeah.
And charged like 4 times the price because her tile was literally an inch off the floor in the middle of the room.
Yeah, that was a black floor with a white vein and purple walls. I remember that one because she said, why is my floor purple? I'm like, it's not purple. That's the walls and the gloss, honey.
Yeah, I remember that.
But, I mean, most of the time we would communicate. So it was good because we had that rapport with each other. And that's kind of how I've done with my business now is I like having connections and building rapport with people. I think people work better as a team than they do individually. And if everybody's out for just themselves, it's a really crappy way to live, in my opinion.
I disagree. I still am out for myself, and I love it.
Well, it's fine. It's fine. I can't help you on that. Maybe in another 10 years I'll help. You'll learn about being the go-giver. Okay, great book. Maybe you'll learn.
Okay, so the reason why this is also so important is we started to do something no one else was doing in Nashville at the time.
We're doing the metallics?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the beginning of metallics or really the industry in general was just starting to do that at that moment. It was brand new.
It was, I mean, it might have been done in California or Miami or something, but the majority of the internet hadn't really been exposed to it. Now you're like, oh, it's a metallic floor. What kind did you use? What's the viscosity? What's that?
Not only that, but now it's like unicorn puke all the time. Like it's ridiculous where it's gone compared to where we started this. Not to feel old or act old or, all these youngsters listening going, yeah, but that's the way it's supposed to be. No.
We've been doing this, 20 years?
I still disagree with most of the crap that's going on right now. No offense. Back to my ego and spewing my ego. If I were critiquing metallics to this day, it's really complicated for me. It really is.
To critique it?
Because I want to destroy it.
Okay,
to say nice things about it. Correct. Critiquing is,
simplicity
to not
is
make
good.
you cry.
Right, yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, so
I have made people cry in a critique before.
It wasn't me.
No.
I just hang up.
Different
No,
industry.
I never hung up on you.
I don't know if you ever
I don't
did.
think I don't hang up on people.
I don't think you ever did.
I've only hung up on one person business-wise, and he deserved it. And if he's ever listening to this, you know exactly who you are about 6 months ago. But we were doing, that was different. It was new to our market, and it was easy because we were the only people doing it. So then when someone says, well, can you do this? It was fun because we would get pictures sent to us. I know it happened to me. Like, hey, can you make it look like this floor that this guy did? And I laughed. And I remember an occasion where I laughed and said, well, actually, if you'd like to see the rest of the pictures of that floor, they're on my website. He stole it from mine. And they were like, what? So I called the guy on the phone. I'm like, hey, bro, don't do this. Either give me credit or take it off your site.
We had a polishing distributor or manufacturer do that to us too.
Oh, yeah. Put it all over his page. And he said, well, it was done in China, so I can't change
India,
it.
yeah.
Here's a gift card to a restaurant that shut down 2 months later. And, but, he can talking about unicorns and glitter.
So not only that, though, but the one thing about Ryan is honestly, he holds it back, but his ego is not much different than mine. Because we prided ourselves so much on this idea of us doing metallic and nobody else was doing it that we were very, very hush-hush about this. And we were doing things on our own.
Yeah.
We weren't doing anything the way the norm was supposed to. We were cheating. Not cheating as much as like doing it wrong, as much as we were finding ways that we wanted to do it. Remember all this?
Keep going.
Okay. So it starts out with the fact that we go to this training class where you're the boss and I'm the assistant, the helper. And we leave there and we're like, okay, this is really cool, but we don't have access to this material easily. We're going to have it shipped in. And, you know, we all know, everybody listening knows, you sell a job, you do it a couple weeks later most of the time. 90% of the time, you don't have months ahead of time when you're doing these kind of projects. Concrete pouring guys can do that. We do things very fast, and we do multiple jobs a week. And so there's a lot of times that where we're like, this is 2 weeks away, this is a week away, this is 3 days away. Like, where do we get the product? So we started finding local products and ways to manipulate the system to go, okay, we really like this epoxy over here, but we really like this metallic powder over here. And we got to the point where we were trying metallic powders and creating effects that nobody else has ever seen. Still to this day, because no one's ever even touched those products because they're still buying the mainstream.
Because they're from a different industry.
They're completely different. Like, we went outside the box to find ways to do this better. And make sure that nobody else saw this. And to the point, we never even had a single employee on a job site. It was just the two of us every single time.
They come in, do all the prep. They might lay the base coat.
They never got to see how we did the metallic.
We were like Bowmanite on stamped concrete for years. We just didn't share it.
Never.
Now, I remember at the time, the company that we were buying that particular product from, I found out that they were training somebody else in town. And I remember calling him and I go, what the heck? I'm like, what are you doing? You're training my competition. And he had a funny statement. And it was probably one of the nicer things that he ever said. He said, Ryan, do you actually think you have competition doing this? And I'm like, no. He's like, so what's your problem? I'm like, I don't have a problem anymore.
Everybody says that to me all the time. Yes. Yeah. Everybody is competition.
Yeah, I've seen some of the stuff. In fact, I was talking to a guy today, and he was like, man, the stuff he does is nuts. I haven't met anybody else who does it. I'm like, yeah, there's people who does some nuts stuff. He just does a different kind of nuts. Like, you do something like Isaiah.
Somebody out there. But in Nashville, there wasn't.
Stuff. No.
I really did have the market.
Yeah, no one else could
and you remember, too, like, I joke about this all the time, too, but if I found another engraver or you found another engraver in Facebook Marketplace or
we bought it.
Craigslist, I went and bought it.
Yeah. I still got an entire set of engraver, the sharks and the wasp. And I saw it at a pawn shop. I was like, $50. He's like, all right, I don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
Sucker.
We would hoard. And that was, at least that's one thing you learned from me. But I would hoard any possibility of any competition coming into my town. You know, and it was really weird because, like, even thinking back on that all this time, Engravicrete knew me. They knew who I was, but they knew Gabe because it was his company.
Right.
They learned about me later. And that was years. During that whole gap, they never sold engravers. They sold engravers a couple times to people here. There wasn't a lot of it. It wasn't like they were leaving me alone. It was purely coincidental that I actually controlled this market all that time. If you think about it, outside of buying the random stuff, because the guys that would buy an engraver didn't really know how to do it, didn't know math. It wasn't Engravicrete's fault. It was their fault of going to a training class, learning a great idea, and then not practicing and not finding ways to get used to doing it and selling it. And even some of my close friends to this day that I do talk to now from the industry, now that I've calmed down about my attitude, I do have one other person I talk to a lot, and they had an engraver too, and they said, I don't know how you sell this all the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, why? And they said, well, because we go into a project and we say, well, look, you can either stamp it, or we can pour the concrete and come back 30 days later and engrave it. The prices weren't that big of a difference as much as they had to come back twice or we're done now. Mm-hmm. And they were like, they always said yes to the done now. And I was like, well, that wasn't an option for me.
Right.
I even had a concrete guy pouring concrete for me. It was never part of my sale to go, you have two options. It was, this guy's going to come in and pour for you, and I'm going to come back 30 days later and do this. So there was never an option of like, which would you rather have?
Well, and I could go to a job site even just years later. I'd be like, this is engraved. He said, yeah, we had a guy do it. I said, it was Rick. Now, Actually, yeah, I think that was his name. I'm like, yeah, it was Rick. Because I know your style.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Except for when my employees did it for a couple years, 3 years.
Yeah,
There's a 3-year window of somebody else doing it.
But it was still with your company.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had the one guy who kind of went off, but he went into the music industry, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Right. So, I mean.
Well, 3 years, but yes.
Right. It was 3 years, but it was still like your sales pitch was, well, I trained him.
Yeah.
So you can go with him, but I still taught him. So which one do you want? And he used that line.
Yes.
I have no doubt. So, but yeah, things have changed. But we started doing metallics, and we started doing trade shows, and got a couple awards.
That's true. It wasn't until we started, you're right, it was after the metallics where we started to make a name for ourselves with select companies in the industry that started to see what we were doing with just the metallic alone and the engraving, because I was also engraving and putting metallic over top of it, which, you know, no one to this day still does.
No,
no one's tried that stuff.
When we did that World of Concrete, and we had to fill in every one of those lines, what, 3 times, 4 times? We sat there with the die grinder. I mean, it was.
Now it's so much easier.
Yeah, it wasn't that easy when we did it.
No, but here's a good one for the audience. Was it the second or third metallic epoxy job we ever did was a porch. A back porch, screened in porch.
Keep going.
Were you part of you were part of the metallic part of it. I went in there and
Just a fleur-de-lis silver?
Yes, I engraved fleur-de-lis, and we were under the understanding that this particular epoxy was UV stable.
Yeah.
And there was always a couple companies that swear that some of their epoxy is UV stable, and I don't care who you are, it's not true.
Some are more resistant to others. It's like some people get drunk on a beer, and some it takes, a case. It's just some take a case and some take a beer.
So we do this project. It's a screened-in porch. I'm also thinking, okay, it's screened in. What's the chances of the sunlight actually going through the screen enough and not scattering to change the color of it, right? And we did a patio outside too. And I'm still friends with these people to this day, actually. They're still on my LinkedIn. Both the husband and the wife are both on my LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. I've never lost contact with these clients ever since then. And they knew we were doing something different. We had sold it to them as we're trying something new.
It was on a broom finish.
It was on broom finish. We had never... I mean, you're talking the third or fourth time we've ever done epoxy in the first place.
This
together.
is what, 20 years ago, where I'm remembering this thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And
it was on a slant.
It wasn't 20 because it would have been 18. It would have been 2009, 2000. It was right around there.
Okay.
So we do the job. We do it all in silver. It looks great. Clients are loving it. Everything's fine. A couple years later, it was a couple years, they called me and was like, because I needed to reseal the patio or the patio. So I came back and I looked at it and they were like, it was all brown. It was all brown, except for where the shadows were from the table and the couches. Like anywhere where the shadow 100% blocked, it was still silver. So they had us come in, I think, to sand and recoat or something, and they removed everything out of there. And I was like, wow. You could see brown and then gray in the background.
That's funny.
And you could see exact lines where the shadows stopped, and it was brown on one side and gray on the other. Still at that point. And they were like, "Can you fix this?" And I was like, "Nope."
I don't even remember that part.
I don't think you. I told you about it, but I don't think you came to see it.
Well, I don't think I came to see it. But no, I mean,
I don't even know if I ever took pictures.
There are jobs that we've taken pictures of and laugh every year about. Dark Side of the Moon. Yeah. That's another story. You mix your product right the first time because you never want to go back and remove product that you thought was on a dry.
One of the best stories of all time.
I
still tell that all the time. I hate telling that story because
it shows that we're human.
That I've made a mistake.
No, you and I didn't mix.
We
didn't mix.
It was somebody else that mixed. I forgot. That's right. Yeah. I didn't make
somebody else that mixed. They couldn't.
But we made the mistake after that.
Yeah. We did.
We'll get to that. We got to tell that story. But
okay.
Before we get to that, I want to bring something up about the history of metallic in Nashville, if you will, to an extent. So we spent 3-4 years doing metallic epoxies, and we were the only ones doing it. And even during that entire time, it was just the two of us. I still never let an employee touch it for years. Only a couple times when it was big enough, we would bring them in the mix for us and stuff like that at the most. Mm-hmm. But we really kept it private for a very long time. except for when we did my floor. So my floor was in 2010 because it was right after the flood, and I had to move to the new office because my place got destroyed.
Right. We went over the VCT tile.
And we went over the VCT tile. Another thing that I don't think anybody had ever thought of doing before at the time.
Well, they might have thought of it, but no one thought it was a good idea. And I'm not still saying it is a good idea.
It worked great.
That's because the glue was probably asbestos glue.
Oh, that's why we
And
did
so
it.
it just stayed. You know, like the old stuff worked.
It was great. But we did 12 different colors on that floor.
Oh my God.
And so we brought in 2 of my employees to mix, and we needed a 5th. The crazy thing was it was only like, 500 square feet, 600 square feet?
No way.
Maybe 400?
Maybe 200.
No,
Dude,
it was bigger.
there was big enough room for, because when you moved out, Oliver went and put his bed in there. That was his living room. So it had like a bed and like a table or something like that.
It was big enough, but yeah, it was bigger. It was longer than this room, but it wasn't as wide as this room that we're in right now. Anyway, we did 12 different colors on this little tiny floor.
It was busy.
And it took everything the 4 of us could do to keep up with it, because back then these things dried really fast in the bucket and stuff like that. So we had to be fast, and we had to time it right to be able to transition from one to the next and keep everything wet on wet as we were going.
Yeah, and we didn't want a color touching, like too similar of a colors next to each other, because we were using it as a color chart.
It was.
I mean, that's what it was. It was.
But we wanted it to blend. We didn't do like exact lines. We wanted it to merge together, look like a cool floor, but still have enough of each color separately where you could tell what that color would look like.
It was a very busy
And we were
hour.
doing colors from companies that no one knew about.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah. Well, I mean, we did some colors from a supplier that we used.
But those guys literally could not keep up with mixing for us because they had to make so many colors at one time for us to move around the room fast. It was
fun.
insane.
It was fun.
And there was glitter flying everywhere.
Oh my God, it looked like a fairy farted. I mean, it was bad. It's like,
I guess that was our first unicorn puke floor.
it was definitely our first unicorn puke.
I just realized that. As much as I want to make fun of it, I had done
You did
one.
it. Yeah. That
in
happened. And then you
2010.
got Brentwood, dentist office. That was we did the pink, that black floor that had the yellow, the purple, the blue, the red.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
it looked like
But
a skate
that
park.
was, yeah, but I hated it.
Oh, I didn't like it
It was
either.
terrible.
That's just what she picked.
I know.
She paid enough
She
money.
loved it.
She paid enough money.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to a degree, I think in this industry, we're all kind of whores. I mean, if you pay us enough, we'll be like, okay, yeah, I think that could look good for you. We're still going to voice our opinion.
Yeah.
But if someone says, that's what I'm going to do, I'm going to pay somebody else or I'm going to pay you, and you're like, it doesn't go against the process, I just don't like the colors, then you'll do it. If it
Not a
goes against our
problem.
process, I'm like,
Yeah,
if that's going
right.
to fail,
Right.
I'm not going to do it.
Correct. In fact, to your point too, people always say to me, well, you're the artist. What do you want? What would you do? And I'm like, no, it's not my house. I'm not living with it. You're paying for it. What do you want? I don't care whatsoever. You tell me what you want. I'll tell you if I can do it that way or give you suggestions from there.
Yeah.
But it's your house. It's your money.
Right.
Period.
You have to respect that.
Yep. I have no problem with that. I don't no shame on that. It doesn't bother me. I'm not doing a painting. It's completely different. It's a permanent thing on a permanent floor.
Yeah.
It's never going to leave.
Is
You
the
know,
idea.
back to the dinner theater. Someday they're going to remove that vinyl, linoleum, whatever's on the floor right now, and they're going to be like, "What the hell?" And there's going to be a history that they're going to want to research to find out who did this
Or why.
and why and
Yeah.
everything. It's going to be epic. I can't
mean,
wait.
There's pictures, if Rick wants to attach me, there was a Phantom of the Opera theme with a 3D image. You put
Which
on
is
3D
destroyed
glasses.
because they put the elevator in there.
Right. But I mean, we literally put 3D glasses hanging on balloons all over the building. We did a Boots Rained Off. That was a metallic floor. We did multiple colors in that. We had different suppliers supply different materials. And, you know.
Another unicorn puke floor.
Which one?
The
Randolph?
the piano bar,
Oh, God. Yeah, it was pretty ugly.
because we screwed that up so bad.
Oh, yeah. And then we had epoxy
But we fixed
dripping
it.
from the upstairs into Dad's bar top that he was doing, remember? Or into the floor. One of the two.
Both.
Yeah. Yeah. That was
Yeah.
bad. He was nice.
Yeah, he put up with
forget-
a lot. Your dad was great to work with.
Yeah, he was.
And he's a lot like me. I don't know how you put up with either one of us.
And I don't even smoke weed.
I don't know what that has to do with anything, but yes.
Patience.
So, all right. So here's where things change. All right. We go from controlling the universe of metallic epoxies to you deciding to become a distributor of metallic epoxy.
Right.
And I'm not going to get into the details of the hatred I had for the company and all that kind of crap. This is the other side of it for people to understand how companies grow,
Yep.
how people change, and how you have to adapt and adjust, and in all reality of all of that kind of stuff. There's a lot to what goes on from that moment on that's kind of important, because we go from controlling our market to you giving the market away to everybody.
Right.
And I was not happy about it, of course. I allowed it. I mean, and what was I going to do? But I also bought from you sometimes too. But at the
Very
same
begrudgingly.
time,
Very
yes.
begrudgingly.
But at the same time, you moved on to go, it's time for me to become a distributor. It's time for me to start finding other ways to make an income from just doing contracting. And at that point, you have to give in. Whether you wanted to or not is a separate conversation.
Right.
You had to, in order for you to start looking at another way, another option, not just always doing contracting.
Right.
And that's fine. There's nothing negative to any of this I'm saying. It's crazy to think about the fact of having all the power in the world and then giving it away.
Yeah.
And you didn't give it, you sold it. I mean, people bought from you because of it.
Right.
But it was interesting to think about that logic of transitioning to, now I think it's time to let everybody have this in my hometown, where you are creating your competition. You're creating my competition, which made me very happy.
Yeah.
And that's a interesting thing to do, where I would never have done that,
Right.
because I want to control everything, like we already talked about.
Right.
So I think that's an interesting point, that you were willing to make those changes and have that happen. You know,
I remember coming home, past dark 30.
and we had been talking about this for years.
Yeah.
Like, I was trying to stop you from doing it,
Yeah.
literally, without being, without ruining the relationship.
Oh.
I was trying to stop you from doing this, and I kept saying this is a horrible idea.
It would have ruined
it
the
wasn't.
relationship if I had been less patient, because the things that you said were not friendly. All right, let's be clear about this.
No.
But I remember coming home one night, and I had dust in parts of my body God didn't know He created. And I remember my wife saying, "You've got to think different." And so this particular company had been asking for years, "Would you take over the Tennessee market?" And I kept saying, "No, I don't want anyone else's problems." And I finally said, "You know what? Fine, I'll take on someone else's problems." And I put a caveat with this particular company. I said, as long as my wife approves. 2 of the 3 people laughed at me and thought it was hilarious. And come to find out, you want to fast forward 10 years, the 2 that laughed and said it was ridiculous are both divorced and paid very large alimonies. The only one who didn't laugh is not divorced and still lives and now is retired. So that might say something about mindset. But I remember going with that company because I wanted something with a system. Because I needed to try and change what I was
Yes.
doing, because I could only physically do so much for so long.
Not only change what you were doing, but being able to show somebody else how to do it. They needed to know you do A, B, C, done.
Right.
It's not you can do this or this or this or this or this or this. It's here it is. Do this exact thing every single time and you will succeed.
Right. And
Which I understand that.
yeah, and so I went with them for that reason, not because I thought that they were the best company in the world. But at the time, when you're trying to choose between things, it was contract and wear my back out, my knees out, and everything else, and be exhausted.
Like me.
Right. For a while.
Still.
Go with another company, which I really, to this day, I still call them friends. And we met recently and had a great conversation. We see each other in Vegas. We'll see each other out. We talk on the phone. We play jokes on each other. I was trying to decide between them and this other particular company. And I remember going to my father-in-law and saying, who do I pick? And he said, which one has a system and has done this process before? And I said, the company, this one. He goes, okay. I go, but the margins aren't as good. He goes, doesn't matter. They have a system. So I picked the system. When you dance with the devil, you need to know that you're dancing with the devil. And I kind of put on goggles and dealt with the problems until I was having nosebleeds 2 and 3 times a week due to stress of that relationship. And at that point,
Due to my stress on you on top of that for that relationship.
you were some of it, but it was a lot more of,
I know, but
Yeah.
I didn't help.
and I'm not going into the dirty secrets of the particular organization. But I mean, I was having physical reactions to the stress involved.
Well, and the reason why this is important, the reason why I'm bringing this up and I want you to keep going,
Yeah.
is for everybody to understand, because everybody out there, what's plan B? And so many
Right.
companies out there are transitioning into being distributors or trying to private label, finding their way.
Right.
And so here is an early example of someone who has done all of that. And here's how he did it, and, sort of, and stuff like that. So,
Yeah. And so, I mean, you have to decide. You can have a great product, but you could have a really crappy product and great publication, and it does really well.
advertising, you mean?
Advertising, publication, marketing. McDonald's is a great example of that. I've never met anybody who said their Big Mac was the tastiest, most filling burger they've ever had. But they sell millions and billions of them every year.
It is pretty good.
Because it's cardboard or
Soybean.
Soybean. Okay, good. That's why vegans can eat it. Congratulations, vegans. You can eat a Big Mac.
Yeah.
But it's not a quality product. Let's be honest. I mean, Bell.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so they put a lot of flavor in their food. Yeah, so you can have not as great of a product, but market it well. Or you can have a really good product and just not know how to market it. But knowing who you're working with is very important, because at the end of the day, something will happen. And you need to know that the person that's behind you actually has your back, regardless of whether it's a financial or not. That was one of the things that I learned. And it is when they say they'll love you like a brother, love you like a son, and then they throw you down and let the wolves try and eat you. That's when you learn the character of a man. And
I still didn't do that.
you still didn't do that. And that's why we're still talking.
I know.
This other particular individual has
Through all of this.
been blocked from my phone, and will stay. I might unblock just to see if he ever reaches out. But I wanted to, when I went into distribution, I wanted to be the person that someone could call and ask the dumb question to multiple times. And I told a guy once, I said, you can ask the question 5 times. After the 5th time, if you haven't written down the answer, I'm going to tell you to refer to your notes. But I'll answer it 5 times because I know I ask stupid questions. I mean, God, some of the guys that you work with know that, and they're like, oh, crap, Ryan's calling again. What has he found to ask about?
No, it's amazing the questions people get that I get.
And you and I laugh about these now. Like, so when do I mix the second part of this, the B? When do I mix it in? Do I stir it in? We're like, yeah, sure. Try that. Let me know how it goes. But I wanted someone that I wanted to be someone that I had wanted. I had several mentors in this business, and some were very patient. Some were not very patient. Some were very, patient and not patient, I guess is the best. But I learned that people who had done it were a much more valuable asset than the people who just read about it.
Well, and that's another key to this conversation is that it didn't matter what company you chose to use to start selling products from. That does not matter at all. You could have picked any company whatsoever. But all of these companies out there, every single one of them, have distributors that have never done a job in their life or starting from scratch or done a couple. It's rare that they have the amount of expertise that you and I had at that time, let alone you more even still on some of those things.
Yeah.
Still to this day, when it comes to epoxies and stuff, that changes the whole entire dynamic of that point. And that's why I wanted to bring all this up. You can't just become a distributor because you think that that's a good idea to make money. You have to know your every little detail shit. You need to know everything. And the more you know, the better you're going to look, or this isn't going to happen because you're going to get called out. You're going to get caught. Someone is going to do a job wrong, and they're going to be like, well, this is what you told me to do. And it's like, well, that's what they told me to do. Who? I don't, sorry, I'm private label. I can't shoot. That's
Right.
not how this works. It has to be the other way. You have to know your shit.
Yeah. And when you don't,
In fact,
you'll
I'm going
get
to
called
call
out.
this Know Your Shit. That's the title of this.
Know your shit. I like the term, where's my shit? Where's my shit? Where's my money?
Yeah.
We came up with that the other day, about a year ago, trying to figure out some stuff. But I mean, there's plenty of companies out there that have made really good money in distribution. The amount that have made really good money versus the amount of people who are not distributing anymore, the number that aren't is much higher.
Way higher.
Because one of the things that your brain has to flip if you're considering this is, it's kind of like I had a buddy and he came and he said, hey, guess what? I said, what? He said, I'm having a kid. I said, well, congratulations. He said, I know, thanks. I'm like, no. I'm congratulating you on the last decision you'll ever make for yourself. That was your last decision you made. From here on out, it's about your kid. When you take on distribution, you're taking responsibility on for these people's financials. Like if you tell someone, do this, this is going to work, and you buy the material and it goes upside down and now they're out 10, 20, 30, 40, $100,000 on a project because you told them to do it. What happens if they lose their house? What if they go into a depression and they lose their family because it didn't go wrong? You got to think about the fact of you're responsible for somebody else. So your phone needs to be on. I mean, I have answered calls. There's a guy that lives right next door behind you. I have answered the phone. Yeah, almost, I could throw a rock. I mean, I have answered this phone call for this guy multiple times at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. There's been other customers that if I know that they're working on something that's going to be precarious and it might be a little bit weird, I'll keep my phone on ringer for them because I know that they're going to call and say, hey, what do I do? The guy, it's colder than we thought.
And
Rain
it's not,
moved
what
in.
do I do tomorrow? It is, I'm
Now.
in this moment right now and I need
now.
help right now.
Right. Or how do I handle this customer? Like I was talking to one today and he said something about talking to a customer. He said, yeah, I use better products. I don't use crap products. Or they're talking about this other product. And I said, whoa. You need to say, if I lose the project to an equivalent product, you're not slamming another company because you don't know what they're using. I said, use equivalent. Then he said something about, yeah, I'm going to do a crack repair. I said, it's not a repair, it's a fill. It's a patch. When you imply repair, you imply it's going to be permanent. So teaching little words like that or setting an expectation, like there's going to be hairs in the floor on a metallic, right?
Yeah.
There's little particles, little streamers. We all have our names for them, okay? Knowing how to explain, this floor has a lot of movement. We're going to get a lot of that in there. If you don't tell the customer up front, you're screwed. Because you've got all the material on the floor, you can't reverse it, and you can't make the floor flat enough not to have those movement lines in a metallic. I don't care if you pre-wet the powder. I don't care if you cut it. I don't care how flat you get it. There's a dust particle somewhere. There's a pitch somewhere. You're going to get them. Well, somewhat, to a degree.
And to your point, too,
you just
I think this is an interesting line to cross, to not cross, but to create and go. As a contractor, if you make a mistake, it's one project. You are one-on-one with that client. Hopefully, those are residential because they're more lenient. When it's commercial, it's even more detrimental to your company.
Yeah.
But it's one thing to be the contractor going, okay, I've got to deal with this one project. It's another thing to say, use this technique, and then they go out and do 10 projects that all fail. Not just one.
That.
Yeah. Like for example, I had, and I'm not going to name companies either. I switched from doing acid stains to a water-based stain for the first time in my career 1 year. And I thought that it was going to change.
I didn't tell you to do that, did I?
No. And I thought it was going to change my life and it was going to make my life so much easier. So I did an entire summer. And we're doing 3 projects a week for 3 months. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of projects I did. Almost every single, because 90% of my work was exterior. Mm-hmm. So I did all these exterior projects to come find out a year later, I think it was a year later, randomly talking to another contractor at a supply store. And he was like, yeah, I just redid one of your projects. And I'm like, what? Yeah. What are you talking about? And he said, yeah, it turned all black and all this kind of stuff. And it was red. And I'm like, what? And I was like, why didn't they call me? And one of those, and this wasn't once, it happened multiple times to me. One of them was like, well, they didn't remember who the company was. Another one was, well, they thought you failed and, stuff like that. A couple of them I did go back to. Yeah. And it turns out that the red pigment in that water-based stain was not UV stable, and the company didn't know that.
I did an entire pool deck because at World of Concrete, the company said, oh, yeah, it's UV stable. Did the pool deck, went back 2 months later, and the whole thing's gone.
Yeah.
And I remember calling saying, we have a problem. Like, it's gone. And they said, oh, well, it's not UV stable. I'm like, yep. When you were at World of Concrete, that's what you stated.
Yeah.
And so they said, well, we don't know an answer. I said, then I need to talk to somebody else in your company. And And they said, well, what do you mean? I said, I need the guy who knows how to fix the stuff that no one else wants to talk about. So they put me in touch with somebody in the back, an old installer, who was part of their R&D, and he said, well, we're playing with this product. It's not out yet. I said, yeah, it is. I said, I need it now. And we went back and we readdressed the problem, and I never heard really anything else from it, so I guess it worked. Sometimes no news is good news. But I was relying on them to give me the information. And when they don't, it affects our livelihood. So as a manufacturer's rep, distributor, salesman for a company, you got to be responsible. I know there's a guy who did a project I'm aware of, and he works for a large national company. And he said, my product will stick to this product on the bottom, and it will not delaminate. It was on a 20,000 square foot government project, double broadcast. Guess what happened? Everywhere where that previous coating was, it debonded.
Mm-hmm.
They sent it off for third-party testing. Third-party testing says the coating should have been removed, but that's the only thing we can find. Somehow he skewed it. The sales rep somehow skewed in such a way that not only did they have to redo the project on their own dime, they still had to buy that brand because he said it wasn't the product and it bonded. You mixed it wrong, so it re-emulsified the layer below. And so they had to spend another chunk of change. That person is responsible for that. My customer, he went into the hole tens of thousands of dollars. He hasn't gone into the exact number, but you don't do 20,000 square foot for $5,000. All right?
Yeah, right.
So he went into the hole, and he was being forced to do it because if he didn't do it, the contractor that he worked with was going to have his bond pulled. So they had him over a barrel, and the sales rep was just giving it to him.
Which is why commercial is so scary.
Well, and that was government.
Yeah.
But you have a responsibility. I mean, you're not just screwing with your life when you're a distributor. You're screwing with everyone you sell to.
And to the same point, the
manufacturer
manufacturer that I used, I had called, talked to their
guy in the back,
and their sales rep, and flipped out like I would do.
Yeah.
The wrath of Rick,
Rick's
all
wrath.
over him, and he didn't talk to me for years. And this was during the time that we become members of ASCC, and I do all the stuff that I start to do, and then his company is part of it. So then I start seeing him everywhere. I've already forgotten about my anger management issue at the time. And he was like, yeah, I remember who you are. And when he refreshed my memory, I was like, yeah, you guys effed me.
Yeah.
100% screwed my world, my reputation. You ruined everything for me. But they solely admitted, no, it wasn't UV stable. It was our bad. It was, but they never did a thing about it. But they admitted it was.
Admittance is good, but it didn't pay your bill.
No, because I never hated him after that. I just voiced my opinion, and it was what it is. And we've been friends ever since, but he'll never let me forget. And he knows, don't ever piss off Rick.
Unless you're Ryan, then it's okay.
Don't ever.
I pissed you off so many times.
Yes,
it's fun.
All right. Well, with that said,
yeah,
I think we should stop on this one.
Okay.
Because I don't think you realize how long we've been doing this.
Probably an hour.
Hour and 11 minutes.
I was pretty damn close.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah. All right. So
and we have plenty more we can talk about, but
we could do an episode 2, 3, 4, 5.
When we talked about this, like we need to do a series of conversations about the things that we've been through and things we've seen and the things we know.
Yeah. So this is part 1.
Yes, but I thought this was a good stopping point because it is more about the transition of that distributor kind of mentality and things more than it is about the projects and all the silliness that we've had, which we have great stories about that we have to record.
Right.
But I think this is a great way to like go. Let's call this.
We'll do another time. But so anybody who's thinking about being a distributor or a manufacturer, basically someone else is labeling your stuff. Yeah. Private label. It's not as easy as you think to take on someone else's responsibilities. I think you would agree with that.
Absolutely.
There's a lot more to it, and you've got to care about your people. I mean, like I talked to I'm called the work wife for multiple guys, and their wives laugh. They're like, you talk to them more than you talk to me, is what they tell people.
I remember that.
Yeah.
With
our wives said the same thing, right? Yeah.
That.
And what was funny was not too much longer, but I mean, like our wives didn't really like the other person because we didn't. It it was portrayed differently to spouses
Well, we have different philosophies
on stuff.
across the board. And how the two of us put up with each other with those different philosophies is one thing. Our
It was
significant
our
others
work
don't
ethic.
have to.
Our work ethic is what brought us together,
Absolutely.
and integrity. I mean, like if I said I was going to do it, I did it,
Mm-hmm.
and you knew that, regardless of politics, religion, feelings about other people. That was what always tied us together. Was the
Yeah.
fact that you said you'd be there. Yeah, I'll be there.
Even if it is that I went to a job site that I did not sell on purpose and you did, and I had to walk in there and she was like, I know you. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
I can't believe you're doing this, but I'm going to say nothing and be the helper for the day and act like I have nothing to do with it.
Right.
And I did.
Yeah, you did. You were a champ on that. And I mean, there's been plenty of times where you and I did not agree on stuff, but we knew when it was important or not. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those, the work wives and vested relationship with the people. You got to give a rip about people. You can't just be an online company.
Well, the other thing too that both of us understood, I think this is another great way to point this out. All your employees don't see the big picture. They don't understand the big picture. They don't understand what happens when they go home and you still have to deal with the client that's angry, or if they quit tomorrow, you still have to finish the job. Both of us did because we both ran our own companies at the same time. It wasn't like one of us quit to go work for the other person. We were still running our own companies, and that changes everything. To have the respect you have to be a business owner compared to just being an employee is so different. And that's one thing that why would you not agree on, kind of thing. Like if another person we know in this industry didn't see the same point of view we did, they're idiots. Because you have to believe in everything you're doing. It doesn't matter if it's my project or your project. Why would I ruin your reputation? It would ruin my reputation. It goes back and forth. Your employees don't understand that. And I think that's another point to why we did so well together, because we were two business owners working together. We weren't two employees or employees of, or things like that.
And the fact that we're so different. If you talk to a customer that worked with us back when we contracted, they would adamantly say,
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that.
yeah, they would adamantly say, yes, you argued in front of us. Yeah. He's like, well, we could do this. I'm like, no, we can't do that.
Yeah.
Why can't we do that? Because this will have this and this. And, Rick's got,
It'd be like watching a tennis match. We'd be going back and forth, and the client would just be sitting there listening to us going, huh?
But at the end of the day, we got a great, it was a win-win.
Absolutely.
They got a great transition of product.
In fact, to that same
knowledges.
point too, those were the times we never argued. We never once argued. We debated, we discussed, we decided, and we went with it. We never questioned after that. We never went, well, you said to do this way, and we should have done it my way. Never once did we go, that was your fault, it wasn't my fault. We committed to every single thing that we did when it was all said and done, and they got the best opportunity out of it because we did agree to do the best of the best. It wasn't, we're going to compromise. It was never a compromise. It was, you're right about this, I'm right about this, you're right about this,
So how do we bring it together?
And we did every single time, and it was pretty interesting. I think it was more entertaining than anything
I'm
else.
sure it was very entertaining to the
argue.
people watching. Because they probably thought, like, these guys don't like each other. And we're like, no, we actually do like each other. We're really good friends.
No, it's a really good point, because we did, when it was all said and done, it was the right thing for the right reasons every single time. It was a win-win, and we never once questioned.
No. I mean, I miss those days in certain aspects. I don't want to go back to those. Let's put it that way.
Well, you don't want to put up with me more all the time like that? You had so much fun.
I would love to, Rick, just not in this life. So we deal with each other on so many other things, and I think that's fair. But I don't think you and I both want to be at 2:00 in the morning grinding or spraying coatings in the middle of nowhere.
I disagree with you.
You've done it more often, probably.
Not only that, but
We
you're
did have
missing a
fun.
key point to what you just said.
Oh, we had fun.
Middle of nowhere.
That's true.
We had nothing else to do anyway.
That's true. So might as well.
It wasn't like we were home and we had to come back to the kids.
Okay. Well, how about when we were in San Antonio doing a project, or where else did we do projects? We did Vegas, and
We didn't do one in San Antonio together.
No, I did artistry with Rachel
You did, yes.
and John.
I didn't go.
God, you saved
I
yourself
had a kid
so much.
I had a kid that year.
You saved yourself. That was horrible. It
I
was
would
a
have
great.
loved laughing at you guys.
Yeah, and that guy with the funky toes, Rachel's friend, that just kept looking at us and talking. He was weird. Sorry, Rachel, but your friend was weird.
Most of your friends are.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rachel. We love you
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah. J. John.
We have weird friends.
Rachel. Bruce. We're hanging out with Brucey. But yeah, I mean, we've done projects all over, but I don't miss the labor side. I miss the creativity side, which I get to live kind of vicariously through some of these guys when they're doing a fun project.
Sure.
I'm like, hey, try this, try this. You know, you want to put fiber optics in the countertop? Okay, cool. If you want to put glow in the dark flake, what do you want to do? Oh, yeah, let's think about this. And you're going to have your constant challenges like, okay, so you can't have an odor. It has to be dry by the next morning. It has to hold up to this chemical. You only have this amount of time. Okay. And, oh, you have a budget. Okay, how many people do you have? What's the layout? Like, we're constantly being creative in what we do. Like, okay, I can put this with this, but I can't do this, but I can accelerate this. It's a constant chess game. We're just playing on a different field now.
Sometimes it blows my mind the amount of stuff that I have up in this head of mine, of knowledge, of materials and methods. It's overwhelming, and I get a kick out of the moments when someone's like telling me some idea that they have, and I go, oh, I did that 15 years ago. I forgot about that. This is how I did it.
Right.
And it worked.
It cracks me up that who you're with now, you would not have known if I hadn't introduced you.
Yeah, that's another conversation.
That's another whole conversation, but it's and how I met them and where I met them at in their life, the owner and things like that. Like, it just cracks me up how
it's
this
okay, you're
development.
allowed to bring up Surf Coat because they are a sponsor of the
Surf
show.
Coat.
You don't see the polyres on the chair
yeah.
in front of you.
No, I didn't know if it
I'm
was in the
sitting on
camera.
a Surf Coat. Yeah, I moved it specifically to make sure it was in
Pacifically,
yes.
Yes. So now that you're working with Surf Coat, Surface Coatings, 134 Davis Street. I don't know why I remember that.
Stop in and say hi.
Stop
I'll
and
show
say
you all
hi.
sorts of crazy
Rick
stuff.
might be there. The company that you're working for now was the one that I was selling for,
Yeah.
and you were like, I don't want anything to do with them.
I don't need them.
I don't need them.
I don't
I
need
like
'em.
my Everclear or whatever it was, Evergreen, Everlast,
Everclear,
something. You know, sealer, that's the best. It smells like menthol. And Wintergreen put it together. And I'm like, yeah.
I'm going to this exact spot to get this acid stain, and I'm going to this spot to get this sealer. I don't need anything else. Leave me alone.
Right. And then here you are, X amount of years later.
And, you know, to the same point, too, through everything we did, yes, you wanted to save a couple dollars on material, but I never cared. But it was never about how expensive the product was and me switching to another company because it was cheaper.
No.
It was that, one, it's an incredible product. There's no doubt about it. I wasn't compromising by switching companies at the time.
Right.
And two, they were accessible.
Right.
Which is a problem that most of the manufacturers out there have, is they're not accessible.
Right.
And I just had that conversation this week where a lady called in and was like, hey, I've used your product for years, and one of your distributors person left and went to another company and talked me into using this other product. I'm not going to badmouth products. I'm not going to bring up what company. But they were like, you know, and the product went fine. I had no issues with it. But the client wants to change the surface a little bit. And so I called, emailed, no reply, multiple times.
Yeah.
I just called you and you answered the phone and you helped me out now. And I said, that's my job. That's what I do. If I don't do that, we look like them.
Right. And you can buy product cheap. Amazon is a great source if you want to buy cheap stuff.
Correct.
Sometimes it's more expensive.
Yes.
If you have but there's companies.
Go to Home Depot.
Yeah. For certain things.
Buy some porch paint.
No. They call it urethane.
No, there's a porch paint.
Oh, is there a porch paint?
There's literally it says cement and wood porch paint that they sell at Lowe's. Valspar does.
Sweet.
I promise you.
I don't shop
Porch
in that.
paint.
I don't shop in that
I've never
category.
heard of a porch paint.
But I mean, you can buy it cheaper online. But to that point, when it hits the fan, Amazon.com is not answering your product question about why is it not drying. So then you're calling a manufacturer. Well, the manufacturer's like, you didn't buy it from me. I don't care who you bought it from. That's not my problem. Call them. So it's worth it to pay 10%, 20, 30. I don't really care. And I think we've talked about it. It doesn't matter what the price is. The service is more important than the price. I want a good product and I want good service. if you're 5 times the price, then I'm going to question it.
Correct.
Okay. You can't just be greedy.
Right.
You know, you can't buy a grinder from China for $500 and turn around and sell it for $5,000.
Yeah.
That's greed, and it catches up to you. And there's people who do it. They do a little paint job on there and put some stickers, and they sell it. And the problem is they're called out in the industry, and everyone knows who they are, and so they got to rely on suckers to keep buying their stuff. There's companies from epoxies to overlays, everything. There's only so many manufacturers. And so of certain things.
Right. There's a lot of private manufacturing that people don't realize is going on, without a question.
Right. And so it's, it's always funny when you're like talking about this product or this product, and they might be made by the same thing and made in the same jar. Like I saw something the other day, it was on toilet paper. There's only like 2 manufacturers of toilet paper.
Doesn't matter what they call it.
Doesn't matter what they call it. It's the same stuff, but it's just in a different wrapper and a different print. So you feel different about it. You're like, oh, Cottonelle's better than whatever Charmin.
That's what I get.
Okay, you get the bear
I'm the
thing.
Charmin guy. Yeah.
You get
I'm the bear guy.
Okay, good. I like Costco. But I mean, it's one of those like
Probably the same product. It's
Probably the
usually
same thing. Yeah, I mean their vodka was the same as one of the other brands. I can't remember, Absolute or something like that. Don't quote me on that. But it's one of those. It's a
Quote
private
him
label.
on everything.
Don't quote me, especially that other comment that I'm not supposed to make. Because it's not
Everything.
politically correct. But yeah, so I mean it's fun, but having good support, that's important. Pricing, screw it. As long as it's not just.
I agree.
your
It's
fee and
more
bid-
about the support. I completely
Yeah.
agree. And well, obviously the quality of the product, but a lot of the products are very good. It doesn't matter who makes it. It is the support. If you don't have support to help you, and it's funny you say that too, because even with talking to you and talking to Surf Code at the time and trying to having that support at the time, there's a lot of things that both of us were doing so far outside the box
Oh, they hated us.
that they almost couldn't help us on some things. Okay. But at the same time, I feel like where I'm at now in this 20 years later, well, altogether, the 20 years since I started,
Right.
literally is this year, that 20 years later, I feel like when I get a call from someone asking for help, that I feel like I'm saving them from all of the mistakes I made.
Right.
Because I didn't have me thinking outside the box, doing things that I did, doing things the way I did it. It was the two of us asking each other, "What do you think about this? What do you think about this?" We didn't have anybody else to
No,
go to
and-
for support.
In Georgia, tattoos. It's our buddy, him and his wife, the concrete. You know who I'm talking about.
Bob
Bob. Yeah.
Bob Harris.
Yeah. So he and
Shout out to Bob and Leanne. We love you.
Love you guys. Sorry, I totally blanked on names. I forgot Rick's earlier. So like him and was it Chang was the concrete countertop guy.
Yeah.
And trying to think who else is kind of the names at the time. Those were the 2 names. You had concrete countertops by Chang.
Countertop, the GFRC, Buddy Rhodes.
Yeah, and Buddy.
Another good one.
Buddy
Yeah.
came around. But when my dad first started, it was Chang or Bob. That's it. So if I wanted to call Bob, it wouldn't be like, "Hey, Bob, I screwed up this stain. I didn't buy the stain from you. Can you guide me through this?" I was buying a book, or I was going to a seminar at World of Concrete or something, trying to figure out how do I fix my screw ups. It wasn't the fact that you had people who'd already done it multiple times before and you could call a supplier. Facebook wasn't around. We had MySpace. Like we started getting Facebook, but it wasn't where it is now, where you go into a forum and ask a question like, "Hey, who's done this? Who has a flake that looks like this? Who's ever gone up a wall?"
Oh, I couldn't imagine how different it would have been
Oh
with
my
what we were doing back then. Now, with Facebook and everything, how we would have handled that differently.
Probably, yeah, it's a great question. But we didn't have those resources.
No.
So everything we learned the hard way.
Yes.
Or we would go to a training. I mean, I'll never forget one of the trainings I went to.
And we'd even ask them
was
things
fun.
outside the box to see what they would say about it, to get the answers that we wanted. And we never once, here's another point to this that I think is extremely important to say too. We never once went back to the contractor or to the manufacturer and said, "Your product sucks. I will never use it again because this happened to me when I was doing something that no one's ever done before." Never once did I go, "If you help me out with this idea, I'm going to turn it around and blame you because you told me it would work." or you thought it might work.
Right.
You know, we never once blamed them when we were doing things that were not on their tech data sheets. We were just asking for advice. Do you think this would work? Have you ever heard of somebody doing it this way? What do you think about this? And if they were even remotely with it, great. We're going to try it anyway. We'll give you the feedback.
Unless they say horrible idea, don't even try it.
Right. But I'm
And then
just
you're like,
saying,
okay.
when we did it, we never once went back and said, you told me it was okay and it failed. If it failed, it failed. It was our fault. We knew it.
Yeah, and most
And we
of the
tried
time,
some crazy stuff.
yeah. Well, I mean, most of the time, if you go back and you're like, okay,
Don't put Bondo down in a patch and patch cracks with it. Don't do Bondo.
yeah,
Learned that the hard way.
yeah,
Just had that conversation a couple weeks ago, and the guy was like, "What?" And I was like, "What the hell were you thinking?"
works on a boat.
Yeah,
Works on a boat. I mean, it's one of those. I would always go back to anytime you had a failure. You check what did you do, and what was the environment, and then you look at the product. But you're looking at the product to say, what did I do with the product? So sometimes it's you didn't grind the floor well enough. You didn't prep it well enough. Okay, you didn't mix it well.
moisture.
Moisture.
Never did a moisture test ever.
No. What a moisture test. I mean, and it's still a question. Okay, do you go with the calcium chloride test? Or do you do an RH test? And then is it raining the day before? Is it not raining? Yeah, it's then you got a freaking hole in the floor if you do an RH test, but you got to wait 72 hours for a calcium chloride. But then they're rating it on perms of moisture coming through, not pounds of pressure or relative humidity. So it's like, okay, who's right? It's back to the CSP thing. Okay, if you take a grinder versus a shot blaster, CSPs were created by the shot blasting industry. Then the grinding industry came along. And the grinding industry says you can get just as good of a bond with less CSP than a shot blaster, but the shot blaster was the rule. So it's like, okay, let's change up the rules. And there's so many variables that go into our world that you're like, okay, where was the problem? You know, was it too porous? Like I did a floor
I know
once.
what the number one problem was that we made mistakes for years, and we never knew it. I know the number one mistake we always made. And it drives me crazy thinking about it to this day all the time.
We were too impatient.
No.
Oh.
We always turned the bucket over.
Yeah, we did. But we trusted the mix guy.
No, they would never have mixed the edges. We never knew that.
But when we did it,
No.
when we mixed, we didn't mess it up.
Yes, we did.
I don't think so.
100%.
Prove it.
I can prove it.
Okay.
We can look back on all the projects we had to redo because there was
The
one
sticky
soft
corner,
spot.
the sticky side, right there in the
Here
corner.
and there, and just these random
Well, it's because you're
places.
paying so much for the epoxy, you want to use all of it. No. The new buckets, they're 3.5 gallons sometimes. You can get a 15-gallon kits, okay?
Which we always did, right?
Right,
Yeah.
because you
So
bought
much
in
easier
volume.
now.
But now you can get a 3-gallon kit. It's measured digitally, usually, unless someone I'll
It's
board
accurate.
it.
It's quick. You don't have to think about it.
Yeah,
There's no
you
measuring.
dump your hardener
No
into
math.
the bucket, you drill. I mean, any more on,
but
how
you
many,
don't flip the bucket over.
Right, but how many batches of epoxy do you think we threw out or had screwed up because someone was like, it's close?
It's all the above.
Yeah.
Because even if they did mix it right, we still turned the bucket upside down.
Yeah, we did that a lot.
A lot.
Yeah, we got
It's
lucky
frustrating.
probably more often than we should have.
That's exactly my point.
Yeah.
Because we did it every single job for years.
And then we'd splooge the roller.
Well, that was always my favorite. I still show that all the time.
Yeah, that was
I
fun.
love that.
It's amazing how much material is in a roller.
It is.
An 18-inch roller. I mean, it is a lot.
You think you're running out of material? You got a whole other couple
got-
square feet without a question.
Yeah, just push it
Easily
around with your
5 to 10.
fingers.
Easily have 10 square feet left in that roller.
I think it would depend on the application on whether you have 10 feet.
Square feet.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I don't know if I agree with 10.
it's not that big.
I mean, speaking of that, should we talk even about warranties and all that crap?
No.
Okay,
Next
that's
time.
another one. Okay, write that down. We'll talk about warranties and how much bullshit it is.
You know, I should be writing this down after, but sure,
Yeah.
I'll stop everything for a second and put
Well,
warranties.
you should also put on there buy editing software so you can edit out my comments that I shouldn't have had.
Oh, I can edit it out. I won't.
Oh, I love you too.
Trust me. I know how to edit.
Can't wait for that one. Thanks.
All right. Thank
All
you
right.
very much.
It's fun, and we'll do it again.
Absolutely. Hope everybody enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching, listening, whatever you're paying attention to, whatever.
If you're
form.
still listening, you have the patience of,
Nah, this was exciting. Why wouldn't they keep listening?
I don't know. We just kind of rambled. But if they know us, you never know
That's
what's
all
going to
I
come out
do.
next.
Every episode is ramble.
So anyone who's listening, if you're still listening, when you call up, if you order from Surf Coat, mention Rick Lobdell Ryan podcast, and you'll get $1,000 off your next $100,000 order. How's that?
That's a good one.
1,000 off a $100,000 order.
I got
Yeah, it's an awesome deal. Brought to you by Rick and Ryan.
Thanks, guys.
See you
Good
guys.
night.
Bye.
Bye. I want to thank Surfcoat for sponsoring the show. Go to surfcoat.com and check out all their great products. Follow me on all social media platforms. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button.
Thank you for listening and have a great day.